Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk about the Royal Rumble 2023 that took place last night. Um, and your winners for the men's section, Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, going on to WrestleMania to face Roman Reigns. And for your women's side, Rhea Ripley, aka Mommy, going on, I guess, to face either Bianca Belair, who retained her title last night from the Raw division, or a rematch with Charlotte from 3 years ago. But also, one of the biggest events that went down, it finally happened. Reminiscent of 1991's Royal Rumble when Virgil turned on the $1 Million Man after a tag match. They lost. They had a tag match. It was Dusty Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes taking on the $1 Million Man. And Virgil Virgil had finally had enough of the $1 Million Man's bullshit, of the $1 Million Man bullying him, the $1 Million Man using him as basically a slave, using him basically as a doja, as a crash test dummy, pushing him around, pushing him around. Finally, Virgil had enough, and he turned on the $1 Million Man, which would eventually lead to their match at WrestleMania 7, and finally a match for the $1 Million Championship at SummerSlam 91. Now, in history, that was considered the most epic turn of the most epic babyface turn in WWE history until last night. For several months now, the Bloodline has been doing the exact same thing to Sami Zayn. They've been bullying Sami Zayn. He's been the butt of their jokes. He's been maligned by them. He's been pushed around by all the members of the Bloodline, particularly Roman Reigns. And he was called an honorary Oos. He's been the comedic fodder, basically, of the Bloodline storyline. Everybody has pushed him around, even Paul Heyman. But last night, when his friend Kevin Owens was brutalized by the Bloodline, run over by the Bloodline, finally he had enough, and he had a chair in his hand, and Roman Reigns just smushed his face, snuffed him basically, and you know, Paul Heyman's on the apron saying, "Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And Jey Uso, who's been his main advocate, who was his main advocate in the trial on Raw last Monday night, pleading, begging that they forgive Sami Zayn for what he was about to do, that they let him back into the Bloodline. Finally, Sami had enough, and he whacked Roman Reigns with the chair, and the Bloodline, and especially Solo Sinca, um, just laid him out. It was epic. It was one of the best things I ever seen. The build for this was amazing. This is just proof to all you guys out there that are wrestling fans that want WWE to pull the trigger right away on storylines and get to the payoff right away. No, it's the build. It's gradual. Gradually, Sami Zayn was taking the bloodline shit, being the crash test dummy for the bloodline, being the guy who took most of their beatings, even being responsible for them winning the their War Games match at last year's Survivor Series, one of the main components of them winning the War Games match. And finally, he had it. They pushed him and they pushed him, and it was just, too much for him. So now, and that was for the Universal Championship. So now, the question is, going into WrestleMania 39, what is what is going to be the match? Is it going to be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship, or Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship? How are they going to work this out? Or is it going to be a triple threat match with Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and Roman Reigns. What's going to be the storyline? I think they should have held off a little while longer for the Sami Zayn turn to WrestleMania 40. And here's why. WrestleMania 10, the champion defended his title, Yokozuna at that time, defended his title against two other challengers. One was Bret Hart, and the other was Lex Luger. He defended the title twice in the pay-per-view against two different opponents. Plus, Bret wrestled that same night earlier in the night in the opener against Owen Hart. 10 years later, WrestleMania 20, the champion, who was at that time the World Heavyweight Champion, Triple H, defended his title in a triple threat match against two opponents, Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit. WrestleMania 30, 10 years later, the challenger, Daniel Bryan, wrestled twice that night, plus the champion, Randy Orton, defended the title against two challengers. One, the winner of the 2014 Royal Rumble, Batista, and the other, Daniel Bryan. Point being that each of these 10-year anniversaries of WrestleManias, 10-year intervals of WrestleManias, technical wrestling underdogs, undersized underdogs that the company really wasn't behind were the guys who came out on top. Chris Benoit, Bret Hart, and Daniel Bryan at WrestleManias 10, 20, and 30 respectively. So, if they waited until WrestleMania 40 next year, they could keep that tradition going with having Roman Reigns wrestle twice, either against Cody Rhodes in a triple threat match against Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, or having Roman Reigns defend individually in a one-on-one match against Cody for the WWE Championship and putting the Universal Championship up against Sami Zayn. Have him wrestle on two different occasions in one night. I think, and that's been done before, not only at WrestleMania 10, but also think back to Night of Champions 2015 when Seth Rollins was the United States champion and he was the WWE champion as well, and he defended that night against him versus John Cena for the U.S. Championship, and him versus Sting. John Cena was the U.S. champion, and Seth Rollins was the challenger. But Seth Rollins wrestled twice in that night against John Cena and Sting. We all remember that because that was the night that Sting wrestled his last match in the WWE when he got buckle bombed and almost got crippled. That's a famous night, Night of Champions 2015. So basically, you've had a tradition where you've had guys go for multiple championships by wrestling twice or sometimes three times in one night. Not to mention, you've had King of the Ring tournaments. You've had tournaments for the WWF or WWE Championship like WrestleMania 4 or Survivor Series 1998. So they could do something like that. Even if they don't wait until WrestleMania 40, even if they do something this year, where Roman Reigns wrestles Sami Zayn earlier in the night, and then he wrestles Cody Rhodes later in the night, puts up the Universal Championship one instance, and then wrestles Cody for the WWE Championship. Because to me, I think, of course, based on Cody Rhodes' promos last year, when he came back, he wants to go after the WWE Championship because that's the championship that eluded his father. That was the championship in 1978, 77, 78 that his father almost won from superstar Billy Graham that eluded his dad when his dad had his first run in the WWF at that time. That's the one he's after. That's the one he's focused on. While Sami is focused more, obviously, on the Universal Championship. So we'll have to see. Given that Roman Reigns has held both championships for a year now, we'll have to see what WWE comes up with. As far as the women, uh, I would like, I mean, even though Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair will be a rematch from 3 years ago, remember Rhea Ripley was the NXT Women's Champion, and she went. um, Charlotte Flair challenged her because Charlotte was the winner of the Royal Rumble that year in 2020. Um, this will be a rematch now with Rhea Ripley as the heel. Obviously, she has Dominic, she has Judgment Day. She has a lot more momentum, a bigger following going into this one than she did 3 years ago. So it'd be an interesting dynamic. But her versus Bianca Belair will be a good one too, if she decides to go for Bianca Belair, the Raw Women's Championship. So we'll have to see. I thought initially they might have Ronda Rousey win the Rumble again and go with Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte, like a three-peat, basically, because they wrestled each other at WrestleMania 35. They wrestled each other again last year. But thankfully, they went a different route. Like I said, Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio and Judgment Day, they have a lot of momentum. They're very well. Some people like Dominic Mysterio's new turn as a prisoner, gangster type. Challenging his dad, being an ultra heel to his dad. I love it because I wanted ever since Dominic Mysterio appeared in the WWE 3 years ago. I wanted to see him turn heel on his father. I thought that was the only way out of that daddy's boy, David Sammartino type mold uh, that he was basically in. He was in that David Sammartino, David Flair type. Oh, he's only here because his dad is somebody famous. Mold. He was not making a name for himself. So I said the best way to do was to turn him heel. They decided to turn his sister heel and pair her up with Buddy Murphy. That didn't work. He had the tag team run with his dad, and now he finally turned heel, and he's doing big things. I expect Rey Mysterio wasn't there last night, but I suspect that eventually Rey, just like Undertaker at WrestleMania 14 or just like Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10, will eventually give in and say, you know what? I can't put off facing my relative in a match, and we'll finally have the match with Dominic culminating at WrestleMania. And that will be the culmination of this storyline. But if Dominic could beat Rey and then Rhea Ripley beats either Bianca Belair or Charlotte Flair, most likely Bianca, because unless they either take the belt off Charlotte and put it on a babyface or turn Charlotte babyface, which I don't see them doing. Also, most likely it will be Bianca, and she'll have the Street Profits backing her up with Dominic and Judgment Day. But if Rhea Ripley wins the Raw Women's Championship and Dominic beats his dad, WrestleMania will be a huge night for Judgment Day, the Judgment Day faction. So those are the only two matches that we know about thus far. Congratulations to Rhea Ripley and Cody Rhodes. We'll have to see what uh, becomes of this. Maybe they won't even do the Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns thing. Maybe they'll just, and this is what Brian Alvarez and the people at the Wrestling Observer say or speculate, that it won't be Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns um, at WrestleMania at all, but it will be Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens taking on the Uso brothers for the tag team championships, and the tag team championships will finally take a bigger center stage and a bigger center storyline than they've had ever in in WrestleMania history, to be honest. Because to be honest, in the 38 years of all the WrestleManias, the tag team championships has never had a a prominent position on the card. You know what I mean? Uh, you had tag team main events. The first WrestleMania was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff, but that Hulk Hogan was the WWF champion at that time. Uh, you had semi great tag team matches at WrestleManias, but you've never really had throughout WrestleMania history the tag team uh, championships be presented as anything serious at a WrestleMania. Really, you know. So that'd be something different. Usually, the tag team championships are usually like a throwaway match, like WrestleMania 13 with Mankind and Vader versus the British Bulldog and Owen Hart, or um, a tag team battle royal like at WrestleMania 14 or something like that. But never to the extent of something like Starcade '86, where you had the Night of Skywalkers, Midnight Express versus the Road Warriors. You never really had that at WrestleMania. So if the Usos take on Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, like I said last year, besides Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens were the stars of of WrestleMania last year. You know, Sami Zayn's match with Johnny Knoxville, which I figured at the time when I did the rundown for last year's WrestleMania, wasn't going to be anything major, anything big really. But turns out it was one of the greatest, the highlights of the show. Same thing with Kevin Owens. He got to take on Stone Cold Steve Austin after Stone Cold was absent from the ring for 19 years. uh, you know what I mean? So he has a prominent position within the company. Kevin Owens does. So Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Usos and versus Usos for the tag team championships. That could be the second to last match on the show. You know, Vince McMahon, obviously, he's back in the company. Um, like Big Dog said a couple months ago when Vince was forced out, he figured Vince would be back. Either that or Vince was still pulling the strings. Vince obviously was still pulling the strings and involved with Triple H on the creative side. Since that time, though, there have been rumors that WWE was going to be sold to Saudi Arabia. There was rumors that they might be sold to Disney. There was rumors that they might be sold to NBC Universal. Dave Meltzer leaked the Saudi Arabia news, and then we found out, oh, that was all leaked very prematurely, you know. And then Vince has come back, and Stephanie McMahon has left, supposedly the WWE. So a lot has happened backstage uh, with it, but Vince is back in the company, so he's still pulling the strings. So based on what Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn did last year, I think they will be rewarded with a prominent position. Either Sami taking on Roman for the Universal, or Sami and Kevin taking on the Usos for the tag belts. You know what I mean? So we gotta see what they're going to do. The Rock not involved with this Royal Rumble. Since last year, many people suspected that the rumors was that The Rock was going to take on Roman Reigns. We've seen him on YouTube, uh, certain wrestling YouTubers saying to him that he, you know, poking at him, insinuating that he might take on Roman. And I figure maybe that will be the case because this year WrestleMania is going to be in Los Angeles. And, WrestleMania going Hollywood again, like WrestleMania 21. Um, and Rock still hasn't been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. That's another thing. They put Undertaker in last year. Now all that's left of the main core stars, the biggest stars in the history of the company, is The Rock. You know what I mean? As far as like the biggest names, John Cena, The Rock, or John Cena. But I think they'll do probably uh, Rock this year and Cena next year. But many people suspected that The Rock would be part of this year's festivities, maybe come in at the end and do something with Roman, kind of like he did at WrestleMania. Um, excuse me, at Royal Rumble 2015 in Philly when they booed Roman out of the building when Roman won his first Royal Rumble, his only Royal Rumble to date. But he didn't do that. And it doesn't look like the main event at WrestleMania will be The Rock versus Roman Reigns. It looks like that's not going to happen. You never know because um, there are two. Anything can happen in between now and that time, but most likely because of the response last year and because of the momentum that Cody Rhodes has coming back from his pectoral injury, more than likely Cody Rhodes is going to follow through and face Roman at WrestleMania. It's not going to be The Rock. So sorry for all those that wanted to see The Rock return. That looks like that's not going to happen, as Gorilla Monsoon would say, highly unlikely. As far as Logan Paul has been pretty open and honest on his podcast that he would love to face uh, John Cena. And honestly, if they could work it out with John that he has a match with Logan Paul, that would be tremendous. That would be a lot of publicity for WWE. Logan Paul, um, people underestimate him. He did a good job when he took on Roman Reigns. Like I said, he shouldn't have been there, but today, what do you want? Social media dominates the world now, and Logan Paul and his brother Jake are some of the biggest media influencers, and they get the big matches in both professional boxing and professional wrestling with all the champions. Should they? Maybe not, but it's a fact that they do. So it is what it is. He might get the match with Cena. He might not get the match with Cena. That's still open in the air. That's still up there. We've got to see. But that's all we know about for now. Bray Wyatt took on LA Knight in a pitch black match, which Bray Wyatt has had a lot of momentum since returning with the whole Uncle Howdy thing and, kind of scrapping the whole Fiend persona. He's pretty much done with it now. But he's still, is still coming up with this corny theatrical stuff. Things that didn't really work in 2014 when he did it, in 2015 when he did it, in 2016 when he did it, and even in 2017 when he freaking had the championship. It was still not working, and then he revamped himself at 2019 SummerSlam as the Fiend. He was there for the Fiend, and he had the belt for a while, and then freaking he was completely derailed by Goldberg, and then he had the Firefly Funhouse match with Cena, and then he completely, after that, he fizzled out and disappeared. Um, and now he's back with this new persona. Some people like the whole new Bray Wyatt. I've always been a fan of Bray. I like what he does, but when it comes to the bell to bell, Bray has it when it comes to the character of Bray Wyatt, the way that he does things, right? His theatric, his extracurricular activities, as Vince used to say in reference to Goldust back in the 90s, his histrionics. I always loved Vince's vocabulary. Watching Vince and Gorilla Monsoon early on as a young wrestling fan was something that really got me interested in verbal prowessness, verbal abilities, communication skills, use of polysyllabic words. But anyway, as he used to say, his histrionics, his theatrics, his extracurricular is good, but his bell to bell, as Bruce Pritchard would say, then that damn bell had to ring. It doesn't work for me. I'll call you guys back to one of my most infamous tirades here on YouTube about professional wrestling, and that was Hell in a Cell 2019. Seth Rollins versus The Fiend. I verbally ripped in, and so did many of the live crowd that was there that night, verbally ripped in to the horrible Hell in a Cell match that Rollins and The Fiend had that night. So much so that is still one of my favorite videos of my own to watch, and so much so that the live crowd hated it that night that they just started chanting AEW right there in the middle of the crowd. The work rate was terrible, the match was terrible, and the result was terrible. It was a disqualification. It was a freaking Hell in a Cell match where there's no disqualification. So that was when I knew at that point, even before he lost to Goldberg in Saudi Arabia, even at that point, I knew that Bray Wyatt was the shits when it comes to bell to bell. Characters, yes, he's good. But bell to bell as a wrestler, he fucking sucks. He's horrible. All he does is the Sister Abigail, and that's it. People get caught up in the character work that Bray does, but the bell to bell, Hell in a Cell 2019, it proved it. That he can't carry it. So I don't know where they're going with this whole thing. On the Raw 30th anniversary, Raw 30, he had an exchange of words with The Undertaker. Maybe the Undertaker will take him on as his mentor backstage, teaching him how to work, work the gimmick, but also work matches. Because Taker had this problem early on when Taker first started in the early 90s. Taker would have a good character, people bought into it, but his in-ring work was shitty. Granted, the opponents they have for him was shitty as well. The King Kong Bundys of the world, the Giant Gonzalez's of the world, Kamala in his later years, as well as early on Yokozuna when Yoko really wasn't that great, because people praise Royal Rumble 94, but other other than the fact that it will go down in history is the way they ended it. Marty Jannetty as The Undertaker's body double ascending to heaven, and The Undertaker dying for the first time ever. It was a shitty match. You know what I mean? Because they didn't know how to gel well together, even though they were Taker and Yoko were really good friends and the SK and stuff, but they didn't know how to gel. But the point is, Undertaker didn't have great matches in the beginning. He really didn't start having great bell to bell matches until his American Badass days. Um, After his American Badass days, when he stepped out of the character, Taker then started to have good matches. You know, he had the match with WrestleMania 17 with Triple H. He had the match with Ric Flair at WrestleMania 18. Um, the match with Kane at 20 was shitty, but and then of course later 25 Shawn Michaels, 26 Shawn Michaels, 27 Triple H, 28 Triple H. All the series of classic WrestleMania matches that we remember from the latter half of the streak. And of course, in the early 2000s, that ladder match with Jeff Hardy that he had. But before the American Badass years, the Ministry of Darkness years, the Purple Undertaker years, or you know, All Black Undertaker at the Survivor Series '96, all those years, it was just the character, because he was a dead zombie wrestler. What could you do to harm him? Nobody could harm him, right? Anything they did to him, he was pretty much impervious to pain, you know, until he became human and he showed his vulnerability with the American Badass persona. But even when he came back in '04 as the Dead Man, he learned to work that together. Maybe he could teach, maybe become a mentor to Bray and teach Bray how to do the character work and in-ring work at the same time. Because that's really, to be honest with you, that's what Bray really needs. You know, he needs to work on his in-ring because he got the character down, but the in-ring is now good. He needs to work with the likes of Mick Foley, who also is a very good character wrestler. With Mankind, the likes of, maybe you could get a hold of Mayor Jacobs, Kane, uh, when the mayor is not taken care of, Knox County, Tennessee, you can get a hold of him and work with him, Taker, and Mick on how to be a good character wrestler, a good character heel or babyface, and a good in-ring worker at the same time. But right now, I just can't buy into even the new Bray Wyatt stuff because I don't know where it's going. You know what I mean? I don't know if he just works on any of that, if he's got it together. Um, which is surprising because his father was a great character and a great worker. Erwin R. Shyster, Mike Rotundo. Initially, Mike Rotundo in the '80s when he was teaming with Bray's uncle Barry Windham, no character at all. Then went to WCW, was the Varsity Club with Kevin Sullivan. I'm sure got a few pointers from Kevin. Kevin Sullivan could be another guy uh, that Bray could work with because Kevin, of course, he has experience with this scary type stuff. Sometimes it worked like it did with Dusty in Florida, in the Florida territory in the '70s. Sometimes it didn't, like in WCW in '95 with the fucking Dungeon of Doom shit. You know what I mean? But uh, Mike Rotundo worked with the Varsity Club. Then he came back to WWE 1991 at SummerSlam. Worked as IRS, a great character that really got under a lot of fans' skins. And people still remember him more so for the IRS, Mike Rotundo more for the IRS character than being part of Power Team USA with Barry Windham. You know, most people will not be able to remember Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov versus Rotundo and Windham at the first WrestleMania, but they'll be able to remember, let's say, IRS's work with Money Inc. or IRS work with Undertaker at Royal Rumble '95 or Razor Ramon at Royal Rumble '94, or the angle with Tatanka in '94 where he repossessed Tatanka's headdress after that ceremony with Wahoo and Chief J. So, point being, Bray Wyatt needs to work on his wrestling skill and how to blend the wrestling skill with his character work. Till then, I can't see him being put in a prominent position on the card, really, to be honest, because you can't rely on him for bell to bell. Well, we head to WrestleMania 35, where we're going to see what happens as WrestleMania goes Hollywood for the second time in its history. And we're going to see what happens with the sale of WWE, what Nick Khan, the president of WWE, does, and what Vince does. There's talk Vince might even take the company private, pull it away from the New York Stock Exchange. There's been in since the year 2001, pull it away from there and make it a private company like it was throughout most of its history. We got to see if that happens. I don't know. How about WWE does this? Get Andrew Tate out of the Romanian jail and play Andrew Tate against Logan Paul in a specialty match uh, with women as the referee. Just kidding. With a female referee. Try to get Aubrey Edwards from AEW to jump ship to WWE with Andrew Tate versus Logan Paul. Two successful podcasters who have been feuding forever. And have Greta Thunberg on commentary. Anyway, just kidding, guys. Love you. Peace. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be starting my channel on Switch, the Switch website. Moving over to there. I'm not going to completely abandon YouTube, but Twitch, sorry, is a new platform that I'm going to be trying out, seeing how it works. A lot of other YouTubers move over to Twitch, so I'm going to be seeing how that goes. I'll be there in a couple of days. Love you guys. Peace.